Go. Also, yeah, also mute yourself so we don't accidentally have any background noise. The turning off the audio will help with bandwidth, and muting is obvious. So, okay, go for it, Sue.
Okay. This year I've asked more individuals to do presentations each month. We've had people like Anita talked about something she was passionate about, her 3-inch photography. Atala's passion, I think, is echo art, finding if I'm, and maybe I'll learn something different tonight, but I think it's finding images, critters, things within nature, um, and then photographing them. And I also just want to say next month, we have another member who will talk, and it'll be also online, and that'll be Robert Friedman. So Atala's going to talk about her passion, and so turn it over to Atala.
Great, thank you. I'll now share screen. And let's get up here. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about glitch eco art photography, which is my specialty, how I came into it. And I thank you all very much for inviting me to speak on the members forum. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all of you. I've learned so much at Chester County Camera Club. It's just such an amazing club. So much to do there. Those of you who don't know me, I am an author and a specialist in communication interdimensionally. And my latest 3 books, We Are Not Alone. It's a guidebook of instructions on how to do interdimensional communication. The next one is Nature Spirits, Spirit Guides, and Ghosts, and it's how to communicate and speak with the nature spirits. And then Truths the Nature Beings Have Shown Me is a coffee table photo book and description of all. Let's see what is going on here. All right. And and here are my citations there if you want to reach me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So when did I start all this? Well, unlike a lot of you who've been doing photography since they were kids, I actually began back in 2003 when a gnome appeared to me in my summer cottage and invited me to photograph a moss fairy. And I had never paid any attention to things like gnomes or moss fairies until he appeared. And the reason he appeared was because he had been staying at my cottage. He found it a nice home. And when I came up for my summer vacation, I knew there was something there. And I kept trying to figure out what it was. After 3 days, he figured he might as well appear. So he manifested. I told him he could have the garage while I was there. The rest of the time he could have the cottage. And to thank me, he took me to photograph a moss fairy on my family property, which goes back to land grant from King George. So it was like virgin forest land. And if you see here, there is the moss fairy. Oh, let's see. Very small right there with a pink shirt and a white pants. So this intrigued me, and I decided it was something I was interested in. So I'm able to talk to anything, wherever, if I need to. So it's a skill set I was born with. So one thing that in the training I've done over the years, Dr. Ibrahim Karim, who's in biogeometry, he always explained to us that if it's not in your data banks, you can't see it. So my work eventually evolved into a Nature Beings database. I was so curious as to the ability to see images in trees and rocks of these beings as they manifested there. And I wanted to photograph as much as I could to see what was there. I never even thought of looking at a tree or a rock and that. So I'm hoping to show you all, how we can do that and get you out there and photographing too. So after I was doing the Nature Beings database for a few years, it became a coexistent desire to effectively present their culture's artistic sophistication. And that's because I found out that nature beings are a very, very sophisticated culture, just in another dimension than ours. And eventually, my work moved into a kind of social activism. And it's because why should we be interested even in communicating with and photographing nature beings? And that's because they're the life forms in charge of Earth's well-being. And our human abuse, all of our wars and our pollution have caused serious environmental issues. And the nature beings by themselves can't handle this. Humans need to clean up their act and help. So I hope with my photographs to show people that nature is not inanimate, that you can destroy it at will, that you're destroying life forms. And in this worldview, uh, we see Earth, I'm a dowser, we see Earth as a collection of grids, of energy grids that connect. So something could happen in Africa, we could feel it in America. It's the proverbial butterfly wings, that butterfly flutters in Japan, and we have a storm in Florida, the apocryphal story. And over people who track this, as I got deeper and deeper into trying to understand what was going on, all these different life forms, dowsers in England, they track ley lines, and these are lines of energy. These lines, there are definite objects that go along them. This is the Mary Michael line, and they discovered, the dowsers, that there were churches to Michael Mary all along this energy line. And it was proof to many people that energy can be transmitted. And my work is, it's a visual affirmation of an animist philosophy. And that is that all life forms are intelligent. Uh, they are coherent in their own frequency. Their communities become complex and sophisticated, or they die out. And the more we understand about these variations, the more we can understand the complex energies affecting our human lives and communities. And the work is, now I'm able to talk about this work. I couldn't for many years, but it's part of the current cultural reclamation by many groups. That is, we're throwing out the prejudices of earlier cultures and understanding what nature beings are saying about themselves. And in doing this, I'm really grateful for human technology of digital photography and computer post-processing. Because before, people would draw what they saw, they might draw an angel or a fairy, but people would say, oh, you have a wonderful imagination. And actually, they were drawing what they saw. And now I'm photographing it, and it makes it a little harder for people to say they don't exist. So what are some of the things I photograph? Well, I've been photographing species, and I'm very fond of photographing green men when I find them. Here's a green man that became a friend. He's out in St. Charles, Illinois, where I did live. And you can see the Celts have a tradition of the green men that many of them see. And you can see here the similarity. These leaves coming up from their face are actually facial armor. It's biological. It comes out of their their physical being, and they can use that when they're speaking, or they'll bring it forward. And then when they go into battle, they bring it all the way forward like armor, which this gentleman has done. It's around his face like an armor. And when I'm taking photographs, I've learned to distinguish, there's the being himself or herself, and then there's their artwork. So this is Grandfather Rock, I call him. He's in Estes Park, and he's the in head of a whole strew of rocks that go down a hillside. And I had a wonderful time with them. When I left, I was very sad, and I was meditating and saying goodbye. And when I looked down at my feet, I found that they had manifested a little stone with a heart right there. Now, in defining what I do, people say, well, what do you do? How do you do it? What is it called? And over the years, I've encountered a number of different disciplines that describe what I do. So this is what I wanted to show you. First, here's a wonderful, I call him the maestro. He's up in Tanglewood. And the kind of work I do, first, it's interdimensional photography, because I'm taking photos of beings who live in another dimension than ours, which I just covered. It's also street photography, glitch art, and eco art. So first of all, I'm a street photographer. And that's because I'm going out, I wander the streets, the woods, the forests, and I photograph what I see, focusing on not on human beings, but on nature beings. And when I find them in the trees and the rocks, I do a portrait study of them. And here's a wonderful pan figure in Central Park, New York. My work is also glitch art, and glitch art originally came about in the 1970s when through computer programming, and there were glitches in the programs, and people discovered that some of them created very beautiful abstract paintings. Rosa Menkman was one of the really prime artists of this movement, and here's one of her abstracts using computer code. By the 1990s, artists were extending this into ecological themes, and finding ways to do portrait studies and studies of nature. And here's one by Nut Whistle Art of a face with the computer coding. And I've extended that concept into interdimensional themes, in that I'm doing the glitches that occur in the veils that separate dimensions, and what we can see about this other dimension and through this glitch. I also do eco art, and human eco art is dealing with ecological themes, and it's often an ecological, environmental, and social statement, such as this one by Martin Varel with the trees and the smokestack between. And this one of these that I've done in this ecological art, and many of you might recognize this. This is the American elm that's at the entry to Longwood Gardens. And I really like these two because humans and nature beings are working so hard to keep this elm alive. It's the last of the great elms that were an arcade there. And when I go in, I always salute it and take a photo, just, because I want to say hi. Usually you can see here's one nature being. You can see this is a large face. It's very sad looking. And here's another being right here that's very sad, eyes, nose, mouth. But when I went to the Christmas exhibit, I went for the first day when it opened, and everybody was so happy. They were just, everything was decorated and people were happy, trees were happy, and even this elm was happy. And I thought this was very interesting that trees can change uh, configuration if they wish. That's stable, but it's a living art, and that art is energy based and it can change. So here we are in the same place, and you see this face here, it's a little upturned with a smile, and here this nature being is actually smiling. You see the eye and the mouth. Now, nature being artists are also doing environmental art, and that we can see from both sides of the veil. So I'm photographing eco art, and that eco art on their side is art that the nature beings create to define actions in their realm, and sometimes they're corrective, or they're beneficial energies that they're seeking to do. So what are they like? Well, let's look at them now. So one of the things that I've discovered is that a really outstanding eco artist on their side creates once they start creating images, they just layer them, they overlap them, one transforms into another. So I go all around the tree, and I look up and down and really close and far away, and you see many, many images. And the closest thing when I first started doing it, because I was history of art major in college, was, oh, it's really like Pablo Picasso. Picasso is breaking up and looking at the same image from different points of view. And over here, here's the trees are looking at their energy and the energy around them from different points of view. So you see here, there's an elf with pointed ears. There's a green man here. The more you look at this, the more images you see. Here's an Indian face, a monkey, and another figure here. Another thing that the nature beings do that I discovered is energetic exploration. Very often I'll find a mature tree who is curious about the things that are going on around him, and is exploring it, because they stay in one place for 200, 300 years, and they have a very limited canvas. So their energy is exploring these animal or human events that occur in their vicinity, and manifesting them often on their trunk. And this is what I photographed here. I was up in Tanglewood, and the nature beings called me to take a photo of this fella who is way up high, and also this photo. When I went back home and to my son's place, his wife said, "Oh, that looks like a sculpture in the house of the first maestro of Tanglewood." So I went back and I looked, and then I found out that yes, indeed, this tree had very carefully created an outline of Hadley, the first maestro, and of Gertrude Smith, the first benefactor. You can see her here. So they must have been sitting underneath this tree, which is right off the great lawn, and planning and mapping out what the stage and the lawn would look like. So this is an extreme case of energetic identification. A lot of trees they become spirit homes, and after a tree dies and there's just the root system, spirits will move into that, occupy it. A lot of, they always say keep trees and roots in the forest, because there a lot of beings, life forms use it afterwards, and they're thinking, different kinds of human or plant items, but they also have nature spirits. And this is the Cedar Graveyard out in the Olympic National Park. And here is this huge, long beach filled with the giant cedars that have washed up over the years. And it attracts a lot of people who go there and they really feel the power. So when I looked at it, I said, oh, all right, these are all the nature beings occupying these old roots as a line of protection for the winter storms that come in to protect the woodland here. And this is one I particularly liked. And here he is up close. I call him Aslan of Narnia. He's looking out. It's a lion looking out on the ocean. And he even has a little beard right here in his eye and his nose. A lot of the images in trees and rocks are images of the gatekeepers. Now, those of you who've seen Celtic images of trees, there's always the trees they understand exist in three realms, Middle Earth, Underworld, and the other upper world. Now, when I go out in the woods, if I find some place where a limb has fallen off and has been filled in, grown in, or just some spaces, I start looking around, because anytime you see an opening, there's going to be a gatekeeper who is protecting that opening, and it serves as a portal into the inner life of the tree and into the nature realm. So the gatekeepers make sure that no one except those who are meant to go through those doors. And so here's one that's a portal for birds. And you see here a bird angel, the wings and the head, and beneath it an image of a bird indicating the bird portal. So this would be where bird spirits would come into and go out. And over here, this is a tree in the founding property of founders of Conway, New Hampshire, and it was dying and going, life energy was leaving it. And when I went and I up close and I saw, there was this little white wood angel that was growing out of the wood, and that was sitting here protecting and helping the life of force energy of this Freeman maple retire and go back. And I always just add on here that when you're out walking in the woods and you see one of these things, you never have to worry, because if you aren't meant to go into that world, there's no chance you're going to get in, because the gatekeepers won't let you. There's guardians of place, and these are whenever there's an area that is of special interest, or there's issues there, there's a guardian of place who it's often a male and often one of the military types, who is there protecting all of the life forms. And this life form being, you can see him up close. He looks a little friendlier up close than he does far away. And he has kind of like a dinosaur ridge down his back. And he's on the road going up Mount Lemmon in Tucson. So he overlooks this desert here, prairie, and it takes care of everything. Another thing that I photographed and I've learned about is they're messengers. And when you go out in the woods and you're going out, you folks might see an image of a face. Often you only see one eye, and the other eye, their other eye is missing. Well, I was chatting with a Native American medicine man, and he explained that that's because these are messenger trees. And this is one eye is prominent, and the other eye is prominently not there because the other eye is in the other world, in the world of spirit. So the Native Americans use those to carry messages to spirit and to receive messages from spirit by working with the energy of such trees. Now, this one is particularly interesting because this is also a lady of the forest, and a lady of the forest is in charge of the birthing and the coming and going. So there's the guardian of place, the often male, and the lady of the forest in charge of the birthing and the deaths. And here you see she has a beautiful heart-shaped face, and she has a cowl, kind of a Virgin Mary-like cowl here, and she is birthing forth this little bird, baby bird, open mouth, his eye, and a little wing, and a little pudgy, baby tummy. And here this is the full tree, and she lives at Morton Arboretum out in Illinois. Another thing I've taken, I'm very fond of gnomes. So my first introduction to this world, and the gnomes are very grounded. If you have a gnome on your property, that means you're a good person and that the earth energies are working with you for prosperity and for the health of your property. So it's very good to have a gnome. You might check around all the trees in your property and see if you have any images, because they're very grounded. They live underneath the earth, and they can travel through earth, and they can also come up above. They're very knowledgeable and wise, and they're very skilled at creating things and manipulating energy. Because they're so grounded, they often will be at the base of a tree, although sometimes they are up higher. And in this case, out in Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs, here's a gnome way up in a stone cliff. So here you have, they usually have a hat and a beard. And the hat, I have taken photographs of some of them. The reason they have a hat is that their head is a little conical, and it is sensitive. So the hat actually is protecting the sensitive head. And then they often just have a beard. This one over here, I particularly like because this is in Central Park. And here there's a gnome male, and I have very seldom seen images of a female, but here he is, and this is his wife. So you see eyes, nose, mouth, chin, and her top knot. And what I liked when I was taking this photo is a man and woman holding hands were walking by. So it was a nice pairing of male and female in nature realm and the human realm. Now, when you're working with the energy of the earth, dowsers and a lot of energy workers understand that the earth looks solid, but it's actually many layers of grids of energy that are circling at different frequency levels, and that makes it look solid. And if you tap into any of these energy levels, you're going to get a different type of energy. And you can think of it like the Christ energy is, or the Buddha energy. It circles the whole world, and you can access it anywhere. You can just tap in and go directly to the source, that energy. And the same holds true with grids that nature. So here's an ape tree. It's in Central Park. And it is showing the template for humans. I call it Planet of the Apes. Here's a kind of a less evolved human being that is evolving up through the ape line, and some nature beings. So this is a place where that energy grid coming down from space is actually anchored into the land. And it serves as an anchoring point. one of the things that nature beings have to do, and I feel very sorry for them right now with all these wars, destructive wars going on around the world, is they are in charge of land remediation. It's their job to take care of the health of the land. And if there's any disturbances, any tearing, like, mining, open strip mining, or chemical pollution, they have to come in and they have to work very hard to restore the integrity and the health of the grids. And which is one of the reasons why they asked me to educate people, to be more aware of that the land it's living, and we need to be more cognizant of that. So this is very interesting because here in Kennett Square, where I live, this is where the Battle of the Brandywine occurred. And that was back in 1777, but it's still a very prominent part of everyone's consciousness. And the nature beings are still working to correct all of the war and the battle and the hatred and the violence. And this is where I live now at Crosslands Retirement Community, this beautiful red maple. It was not there in 1777, but the nature beings use it as a nodal point, like that ape image I just showed you. And in it, they have, here's one side of the tree, and here is a deva, a feminine energy, and here is a warrior elf. You can see here with his helmet over his face. And on the other side is an image of a British light infantry officer. Here's his plume and his helmet, his eye and his chin. And there's the officer, and then there's the enlisted man. Here, kind of a crusty old sergeant type with a mustache and a beard. And they explain what they're doing is they're holding them in place and trying to feed them love, feed that field of energy, that frequency love, to bring love back into the land and help correct it, because love can correct everything. And here is love stories. So one of the things that I found very interesting and is the sophistication and the cultural development of the nature realm, of which, of course, love is a significant part. And in this case, I was out in the property next to my family's property in New Hampshire. I was walking through the woods, which was it's state forest, so it's protected. And I heard, "I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you." And I went like, wow, I don't see anything here. And so I tracked the voices and I came upon this scene here where there's a balsam and a birch, and they are locked in a kiss. And when I was studying this, I was just astounded. And the deva of the area was attracted to this human who was vibing in on her frequency, and came in, and she was so delighted that I could understand her, that she explained to me the whole story about how in her part of the woods she was doing this experiment, because the birches are very kind and loving, but they have they're a little weak for the north and New Hampshire weather. And the balsams are very stern, strong, but they're a little standoffish and too stern. So she was trying to pair the two so that they could help each other, the qualities each needed. Unfortunately, the birches are not as strong as the balsam, and this birch was dying. So they were professing their love to each other, and this in this image. And then over the next 10 years, I was graphing what happened. I'd go back and I'd watch. Couple years later, she's beginning to pull away, and here he is. You can see his mouth and his eye, reaching out and trying to touch her as she's moving away. Couple years later, here she is falling down the cliff, and he's still holding on with his branches. And then when I went back a few years later, she'd fallen down. So it was just the resilience of love, and how love is in all the realms, and the devotion of lovers to each other. Another thing that the nature beings do is historical documentation. And this is very interesting. I've taken a couple of photos of very large murals, kind of like our presidents, sculpted into the mountainside, only we had to we humans cut away to create the sculptures. And here in the nature beings realms, they work with the life force energy of the object to alter it while still keeping everything alive. They're not destroying it, they're just altering the energy. And this, if any of you know Native American quote mythology or history, it tells how twice in the 4 changes of worlds that we've had so far, the ant beings rescued humans and animals and took them into the inner earth, where they protected them until the weather improved. And here in Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs, on their Grand Plaza, there's this beautiful cliff. And I was taking a photo of the cliff when the nature beings came and said, "Oh, do you like the sculpture?" And I went, "What sculpture?" And they went, humans. And then they showed me. And then I went, like, when you're taking this kind of work, you have to keep kind of shifting your frequency so that you can vibe into where they are. And then all of a sudden it becomes so clear, and you wonder why you didn't see it before. So I try to take the photo and just clean it up so people can see, so that when you go out, you know that there's something there, and see what it is, explore it, just kind of shift your frequency and look through the camera, because the camera can see more accurately than a human can without the camera, because the camera doesn't have an emotional body. So here, the nature beings had in a red cliff creating an image of bleached sandstone. So this is red sandstone and bleached sandstone. And they sculpted an ant being, a Indian, and a mountain lion protecting each other's backs. And over here, you can see a side view of the ant being, the Indian, and the mountain lion. And they explained this is an image marking the pact made between the species that they would protect each other. So the Utes come each summer, and they actually do powwow in front of this cliff. And then here is an image of greatness of spirit, which transcends divisions. And this is Strawberry Fields in New York City. And this is a place that was beloved by John Lennon, and that Yoko Ono funded a lot to create a whole area in Strawberry Fields dedicated to him. And this is a case where John Lennon's spirit was so elevated that he was beloved by both humans and the nature beings. So not only in this area have the humans memorialize them, the nature beings have as well. So here we are in the area, and this is the well-known, how did we get there? Sorry. Let's see. Come all the way down. Here. This is the image of the mosaic with Imagine, and humans come here every day, and they leave flowers and have their photo taken as a way to memorialize them. And over here, far to the right, here is John Lennon memorialized by the nature beings. And this is a large tree that just in the green area next to the Imagine, and a lot of nature beings images in here memorializing him. And the nature beings explained to me what was occurring here, that this is a representation of John Lennon as Pan. And here you see John Lennon with his long hair that he had at the end of his life. And here he is playing the pan pipes. Now, the story of Pan is that he was so beautiful and he made such beautiful music that he entranced both humans and animals who would come to listen to him. And so here you see a rabbit, and over here you see a human, and then here you see some nature beings. So they're all adoring Pan. Now, this is the whole area of strawberry fields where people come in the summer just peacefully to rest. They go to sleep on the lawn and sit and read books here. And just notice these are two rock formations that are right off the path. And here is an profile of John Lennon, and the other one is the prone body of John Lennon. So it's memorializing his death and his, the sorrow of his death. Now over here is an image on the other side of the lawn is an image of Yoko Ono. They explained to me she has that long gaunt face. And she has rising from here that classic image of you see in the Middle Ages often the wisdom flame rising out of the crown chakra. And her base chakra is leaking the sap, her life force energy out of it. And it represents the sorrow that she has on the death. And there we are. That is a presentation of the kind of work I do. And now I'd love to have some questions from people. How are we doing there? So are there, does anybody have any questions for me about the kind of work I do? Would love to hear.
Have you found any of these figures over at Magnolia Gardens where you have is that a picture of Magnolia Gardens behind you?
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you ever encounter any of these figures at Magnolia Gardens also?
Oh, yes, and I tell people, go there, the nature beings are everywhere. I love Magnolia Gardens. I have quite a few images there, especially like their the roots, the elbows.
Yes, the
They
knees.
The knee?
they have some beautiful images in those, and some beautiful images in the old trees. Usually in public parks, the nature beings you can get a lot of images of nature beings because they are coming forward. It's a place where they're associating with people, and the nature of the trees trees are very interested in connecting with nature. So like in Central Park or Magnolia Plantation, you'll often find more images than out in the middle of the woods. In the middle of the woods, they're happy. They're just with the trees and they're just hanging out with themselves. When they hang out with people, you're more likely to find the images. And you're also going to find them in your own backyard. So I have a story. One of my events that I was talking at, there in person, there was a husband who'd obviously come because of his wife. And he had his, you know, he was like, just, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, I really did not reach this fellow. But 2 days later, I got an email from him and saying, the next morning after your lecture, I was shaving, I was looking out the window at my favorite tree, and my tree was looking back at me. So, you know, when you start being aware of it, you're going to see these everywhere and have your own experiences.
Wow.
So you'll have a good time when you go down there.
Yeah. Thank you for opening our eyes to this. I mean,
Mhm.
every once in a while you do see figures in trees, but I haven't ever really paid attention to anything like that. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
this.
Well,
So I have a question.
yes.
So, I've seen, you have images in trees and rocks. Have you ever seen anything like the sand at the beach and it's more a temporary image and then the water goes over it or like sand dunes? Have you ever looked at anything like that?
Well, I myself am a woods person. I'm not a beach person. So, but it would make sense that if that's where you go, you are going to connect to those life forms, and there's no reason why you would not see faces there or encounter different ways that the nature beings are protecting the water, manifesting water, and when they're all the different water beings that people who work with water see. I particularly like rocks and trees. Are you a water person, Peter?
Yeah, I was just curious because, like I said, your images look like they've been there for years and years and years. And then I'm thinking, what about sand? And, like you see things at the beach and, the tide comes in and goes out and, the sand has all different types of formations. I never thought about that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a neat thing to start looking to be aware of something that, you're always around and never really think about it. So it's pretty neat. A really awesome presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Peter. And you know what? I would love for you to, now that you are aware of this, to go down to the beach and just ask the beach spirits and the beach beings to communicate with you and see and when they do, to listen, not to think, oh, it's my imagination, but allow yourself to think, well, maybe I really am hearing them, and then gradually build up that relationship with them. So then I'd love to hear about it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mm.
I have just a comment. I thought this was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that you shared it. I will see everything just a little bit differently. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like a fun thing to do. And so it works on all levels. It's fun, it's educational, it's social, activism, whatever level, just like every activity. You can see it in so many levels. Thank you so much.
Well, in the camera club, I often hear people say, just go out and take a look, take a look. And this would be one way to really focus in on taking that look.
Yes, and it's one of the things that people with a camera are better able to see, because when you're working with the camera does not have the vital energies, and the nature beings exist in a different frequency than us, and our heavy human vital keeps us from seeing there, but the camera doesn't have it. So if you feel that you're hearing something and you should take a photo somewhere, take the photo and then go back and look at it on your computer and see if you found something. And that's what I did when I was first starting out.
Do you find that, first of all, thank you for this presentation. I found it really just so fascinating. It kept reminding me of a book I read, The Secret Life of Trees. And but do you find that you find more nature beings as for example, in the woods, if the trees are older, and do you find that they're almost like families that have gathered together, and you circle around and you look up and you look down and there's more beings?
Yes to all of that. But I do find more trees in parks that look like humans. When I go out in the woods, I find trees that look like animals. They manifest animal images because that's what lives around them, as versus trees that like the London plane trees, especially that live in a city. They're relating to what's around them, which is people. And once a tree needs to be a certain age, when it starts exploring, it has to establish itself in its own energy, and then it starts exploring. And then it's, as soon as it works out how to manifest it, it starts manifesting on all different levels all the way around. Or a tree has been cultivated and nurtured by the nature beings to serve as a nodal point or a particular alpha tree of a forest. And the nature beings are coming in and they're creating the images. So it's a really exquisitely complex world that to start exploring, just like our own. And I was asked to stop at 7:20 and it's 7:22. So I need to say thank you to everybody, and stay tuned for our wonderful speaker at 7:30. So
Thank
okay,
you. Thank you
ladies.
very much, Atala.
Mhm.
If there's any other questions, I imagine people can email you directly. Or get in touch with you directly, but thanks. That was a